The year was 1943. The Japanese occupation of the Philippines was in full force, and in the province of Batangas, a new commanding officer had arrived. Major Kitoroshi Makoto of the Imperial Japanese Army was known back in Japan as one of the empire's most dependable and disciplined officers. The emperor's advisors considered him both honorable and strategically brilliant, which was why he had been entrusted with command over 10,000 soldiers in this strategic province. Though his mission was clear: maintain Japan's grip over the region and keep guerrillas and American forces at bay, Major Makoto governed differently from other Japanese officers. While surrounding provinces such as Laguna, Cavite, and parts of Luzon suffered under cruelty and harsh military rule, his leadership was marked by restraint. He enforced imperial orders, yes, but cruelty for its own sake had no place in his philosophy. For Makoto, honor meant following the emperor's will, not abusing the people under his protection. One hot afternoon, as he was inspecting the local marketplace with a few of his men, something unusual caught his eye. Amid the bustle of vendors and townsfolk, he noticed a young woman, her skin sun-kissed, her figure slender yet graceful, her beauty striking without needing adornment. She was not like the others. Most avoided his gaze, bowing in fear or turning away. But this woman looked him straight in the eye and greeted him. Makoto didn't speak Tagalog, but her tone conveyed respect rather than fear. He continued on his inspection, but her image stayed with him. Days later, during another routine patrol through the market, he saw her again. Once more, she looked directly at him and offered a polite greeting. This time, Makoto stopped. He called over his Filipino translator. "Konnichiwa, o namai wa nan desu ka?" The translator turned to the young woman and said, "Magandang araw." "What is your name, Miss?" The woman smiled gently. "Magandang araw din, Lira." Through the translator, Makoto introduced himself. "Kitoroshi Makoto desu. I am Kitoroshi Makoto." They parted ways, but the warmth in his chest lingered. That night, Makoto summoned his translator again and discreetly asked where Lira's family lived. The next day, the translator returned with the address. A visit soon followed. Lira's family was of high standing in the community, well respected and influential. She was the eldest of 3 siblings, and their home boasted a beautiful garden where she and Makoto took their first quiet walk together. Despite their differences, her being a Filipina under occupation, he a Japanese officer, an unspoken bond began to grow. In the weeks that followed, Makoto's visits became frequent, and Lira began to look forward to them. Eventually, their mutual curiosity deepened into love. It was common for Japanese officers from surrounding provinces to gather and discuss defense strategies against the guerrillas and incoming American forces. One evening, a formal banquet was held. Because of her family's status, Lira's parents were invited, and for the first time, she attended at Makoto's request. That night, however, another man noticed her. Colonel Rocca Niguchi, higher in rank than Makoto, and connected by blood to the emperor's family, was immediately captivated. Niguchi was not a man to be denied what he wanted. Using his influence, he had Makoto reassigned to command in Laguna, taking over Batangas himself. The transfer seemed like a routine military order, but it was a calculated move, a way to separate Makoto from Lira and claim her for himself. Under Niguchi's rule, Batangas grew harsher. The people suffered. Lira suffered most of all, torn between her love for Makoto and her parents' sudden favor toward Niguchi, who courted her aggressively. Her spirit began to wither. Days passed without her leaving her room. Nights came without her touching food. One evening, the household was struck by tragedy. Lira took her own life, hanging herself in her bedroom. In her final moments, she wrote a letter for Makoto, but he never received it. When Noguchi learned of Lira's death, his jealousy curdled into rage. He blamed Makoto for his loss, concocting false charges of treason against him. Using his higher rank, Noguchi ordered Makoto's arrest under the pretense of sending him back to Japan for trial. Makoto, unaware of the true nature of the accusations, Ivan felt relief, believing he would soon return to Batangas and see Lira again. Instead, as his escorts led him through a forested path near a mountain stream, they murdered him. His body was buried beneath a large tree that stood on a rise above the brook, and there his spirit remained. 58 years later, in 2001, a small shack was built near that same brook. 19-year-old Vanessa lived there with her family. Her father worked as caretaker of a cornfield, and though she had finished high school, poverty had crushed her dream of going to college. One noon, while washing clothes by the stream, she heard a faint voice call her name. Vanessa? Thinking it was her father, she looked around. No one. She shrugged it off, returned to her washing. Days later, it happened again. This time, the voice was clearer. Vanessa, Tetsudachi, Morayamazuka. The words were unfamiliar. That afternoon, she went to a computer shop to look them up. They were Japanese. Their meaning. Can you help me? Fear mingled with curiosity. She told no one, but each time she returned to wash clothes, the voice called again. Eventually, she whispered back, "What do you need? Who are you?" Though they couldn't understand each other well, she began jotting down his words to translate later. One day, the voice spoke more urgently. "Please help me find the grave of my beloved Lira in Batangas." The name Lira struck her. She promised to try. Vanessa began visiting the Batangas cemetery, combing through old records and asking locals. Eventually, she found Lira's resting place. Excited, she rushed back to the brook and told the voice, now identifying himself as Kitoroshi, a Japanese soldier, the good news. Then came another request. He wished to be buried beside Lira. He told her where his remains lay, under the large tree above the stream. Vanessa's father was skeptical at first, but she pleaded reluctantly. He agreed to dig. Beneath the roots, they found skeletal remains. They placed the bones in a bag, prayed over them, and traveled to At Lira's grave, they laid Makoto's remains beside hers. Vanessa offered the final prayer. The next day, Vanessa returned to the brook. It was silent. She smiled, believing Makoto and Lira were finally together. But she remembered, before the burial, Makoto had whispered one last message, which she had written down. That afternoon, she returned to the computer shop to translate it. Vanessa-san, thank you very much. Could you also retrieve my belongings? I hope they may help you and your family. He gave her directions behind the old military headquarters where he had once been stationed in Laguna. The building was long, abandoned, overgrown. With her father's help, they dug where he described and unearthed a heavy wooden chest. Inside, to their astonishment, were gold bars and pieces of fine jewelry. It was Makoto's final act of gratitude. Vanessa's father have also been back and forth to the area several times because of the weight of the gold bar. Vanessa is very grateful for the great change given to her family. Currently, Vanessa is a successful businesswoman who does not forget to give scholarships to young people who cannot afford to study at college. This is her way of thanking Kitoroshi for the support. I hope you like my true story that happened to an individual in Laguna. Thank you very much for listening.